The latest Liberal strategy to hold on to power in Canada: cancel the elections, keep Canadians from going to the polls altogether. Take a page out of Zelensky's handbook in Ukraine. Listen to Karina Gould, the Trudeau's House leader and Liberal leadership candidate, who says Liberals may not allow Canadians to vote in an election this year because of a tariff war with Trump. It's Trump's fault. Listen.
If we are in a full-blown tariff war with the U.S., that might be a reason not to go to the polls. But we are also in a minority government, and so it's actually not just up to the government at the time. There would have to be an agreement with the opposition parties if we weren't to do that. But I think whatever decision we take has to be one that is responsible for Canadians. And one of the things I can say is that, you know, in Ontario, the Premier has decided to call an election at a time where, you know, his energy might be better spent defending Ontario's interests. And so I think Canadians will judge us as to what we decide to do, both as the governing party or as opposition parties, depending on where we are with Donald.
Yeah, where we are with Donald Trump on the tariffs. So really, if we have elections in Canada, it's really dependent on what happens with Donald Trump and these tariffs. Let's bring in David Crayden, independent journalist out of Ottawa, Canada, who writes at the Post Millennial. He's got a great YouTube channel as well, Crayden's Right on YouTube, and he's been doing some great interviews lately on all of this. David, great to see you. Welcome to the show. So canceling elections in Canada, is that seems to be the way to hold on to power?
Well, it's funny. This was first mentioned when Trudeau prorogued or suspended Parliament. A lot of folks on the Conservative side said, hey, you know, they could do this again and they could keep staying in power until October 2026, because doesn't the Constitution of Canada say that a government can stay in power for 5 years? But people said, but hey, 15 years ago, the House of Commons voted to have elections every 4 years. So that's the new tempo. But here we have Karina Gould, and there's been Liberal strategists talking the same way. Mark Carney won't answer the question if he's asked about whether or not he's going to hold on to power if he becomes Prime Minister.
Will you call an election if you win? Will you call an election if you win the leadership? Mark, will you call an election if you win?
Or whether he wants to have an immediate election. So this tells me that all of those Conservatives who said, hey, this could happen, and were labeled as conspiracy theorists, you know that word, it's once again, the conspiracy theory is being proven to be true. And Karina Gould, by the way, you mentioned this earlier in the show about that Waffen-SS, that former Waffen-SS member who was invited to the House of Commons, given a place of honor in the gallery to listen to Zelensky's speech. Well, it was Karina Gould who invited Yaroslav Hunka, the former Nazi, to come to Ottawa, to come to the House of Commons. And it was Karina Gould who said, all of that should be redacted from the record. It should all be censored. Everything that happened that day should be censored from the official government record, which we call Hansard. And that's Karina Gould. So now she wants to cancel elections. She wanted to cancel the memory of her inviting a Nazi to the House of Commons as well.
Oh, we know her well. Now, tell us a little bit about what we're seeing on X, which is this anti-Americanism that you see. And in fact, even a Redacted viewer, when we covered the tariffs, they thought, oh, you're anti-Canada now. So are we enemies? How did that happen?
Are we anti-Canada all of a sudden?
You and I, do we have to hate each other?
What's going on here?
Well, it's very mysterious to me because we had a 30-day reprieve to get the border in order, which, of course, Justin Trudeau hasn't really done very well. But in the meantime, he's escalating the tough talk about counter tariffs, retaliatory tariffs. Don't buy American, buy Canadian. And of course, it's all being focused right now on these hockey games where there's booing of the national anthem. So I thought we were trying to work towards a negotiated settlement here. We were trying to get to a solution because a trade war is not something that Canadians want or Americans want. I'll tell you who wants a trade war, though. Justin Trudeau, the Liberal Party, Mark Carney, his anointed successor, they want a trade war because they want to run in the next election against Donald Trump, not against Pierre Poilievre and the Conservatives, because they're going to lose that election. But they think they can win an election against Donald Trump, this U.S. boogeyman. The Liberals have been doing this for decades, putting the Americans up as this other party out there, as putting the United States up as this foreign entity that is corrupting and subsuming Canadian values. And we need to be vigilant and we need to be on guard against the United States. This is an old Liberal trick, but I can tell you, I don't think it's going to work because people know what Trudeau, Carney, and people like Karina Gould are up to. This is just face-saving measures so Canadians can forget a decade of catastrophic management of the economy, a decade of absolute disaster in this country. That's what Trudeau and the other Liberals want Canadians to forget when they focus on Donald Trump and the United States. Most Conservative Party supporters love Donald Trump because of what he's doing right now through these executive orders, how he's defeating the deep state, how he's coming out strong against DEI and against critical race theory, how he is restoring common sense. That's the same platform the Conservative Party in Canada is running on. It's a common sense platform. So I don't think this is going to work. We're not enemies. As Lincoln said before the Civil War, we are not enemies, we are friends, and we have to remember that.
Well, that's something Maxime Bernier continues to say in his platform on X. And this week, he's been really excited about peace talks between Russia and the United States and its proxy, Ukraine. So which leaders do you have in Canada that are saying that are anti-war, that are for peace, that are willing to say Zelensky's a thug, besides Maxime Bernier?
Yeah, is Poilievre on that train?
No, unfortunately we don't. And I criticize Poilievre on this all the time because I, like you both, I'm completely, utterly opposed to this war in Ukraine and the billions of dollars we have sent into this black hole of Kiev. And we continue to do that. We need to end this war. I agree the war was not started 3 years ago. It goes back to at least 2014. There are lots of reasons for this invasion of Russia. Ukraine cannot be a member of NATO. It's an outrageous idea. But no, Pierre Poilievre is not saying this. He's been in lockstep with Justin Trudeau all along. And there's no other political party in Canada except the People's Party of Canada that is supporting this. And my hat's off to Maxime Bernier. I am a good friend of Maxime. And if the People's Party of Canada wasn't polling at about 3 or 4% right now, I think I'd probably be on Maxime's side. But even Maxime has told me he does not expect to be the next prime minister. He knows the Conservative Party of Canada is probably going to win the next election and Pierre Poilievre will be the prime minister. But I will keep pushing Pierre Poilievre from the right, from a conservative perspective, on foreign policy as well as fiscal policy, because I worked at the House of Commons for far too many years. I know I can't trust politicians. I know one thing about politicians, they will always let me down. And if we don't push them in the right direction, and I use that word right in a very two distinct ways. If we don't do that, they will always drift to the left, and they'll always end up doing not what they were elected to do.
I think that's why we're all so shocked about President Trump right now. I mean, we have a first term where he wasn't able to drain the swamp. He actually added to the swamp in his first term. And here he is totally draining the swamp. And we're all in shock that he said these things he was going to do. And now he's actually doing them. And everyone's in shock. They cannot handle it right now. It's unbelievable. Something else that they can't handle, Canadians can't handle the United States winning in the hockey game, in the big hockey game last weekend, where fights broke out and they booed our national anthem. David, what is going on there? And then tonight, of course, we would be remiss if we didn't talk about tonight is the night, the championship game in Boston, United States, Canada.
Are we enemies there?
Are we enemies there? What do you think is going to happen tonight? Will the U.S. take home the crown, or will Canada be victorious?
Well, based on the last game, I think the U.S. has a good chance of taking home that crown. I know Donald Trump invited Justin Trudeau to join the governor's conference tonight as the 51st governor. And of course, that went over very well, of course, with Justin Trudeau. But this booing of national anthems is so low class. I hope Canadians are better than this. It disgusts me. Politics has no place in a sports arena. This is a hockey game. This is ridiculous. And it embarrasses me to see Canadians booing the national anthem when after 9/11, of course, Canadians played the United States national anthem at many different occasions. I was there in Parliament Hill for a lot of those occasions, and we proudly stood along with Americans. We have proudly stood with Americans during the Second World War, during the First World War, during Korea. We had the Devil's Brigade was made up of Canadian soldiers and U.S. soldiers during the Second World War. It was a first-class special forces brigade made up of Canadians and Americans. We are friends. There is no place for this nonsense at hockey games. We need to get back to reality.
Right. And we here on
We'll
Redacted
see.
also spoke out when we're not above it. Americans booed the Russian national anthem in many instances through Olympic Games and things like that.
I just hope
nobody should do that. Full stop.
Can I say I hope that Americans in Boston tonight at the game, we'll see what Boston does. It'd be like it's in New York, there's going to be booing going on. So hopefully when they play the Canadian national anthem tonight in Boston, there's no booing. That would be nice. Elevate the conversation, Bostonians. Elevate it. And cheer the American national anthem, and don't boo the Canadian national anthem tonight. So we will see. David, great to see you up there in Canada. Very interesting times what the Liberal government of Canada is trying to do right now. Thanks as always, and continue the great work. Thanks, David.
Pleasure to be here. Thank you so much, Clayton, and thank you, Natalie.
Yep.
Our pleasure. Thanks, David. Great to see you. And yeah, I mean, we were I'm wearing my Omaha Beach sweatshirt today. The Canadians and Americans fought side by side on those beaches all up and down Normandy, on D-Day and through the Second World War. And so like this kind of back and forth hatred right now is kind of sickening right now.
Don't drink the Kool-Aid, folks. Don't listen to Justin Trudeau. We need this kind of attitude in Canada right now, because let me tell you, Justin Trudeau will fight tooth and nail to stay as leader of the Liberal Party and as Prime Minister of Canada, and he will use every trick in the Liberal handbook to do that. So we have to be vigilant, and we have to have perseverance to fight this battle to the end. As I've been saying since this station went on the air, we need to resolve to resist. And we need to fight for our free speech and our democratic rights to say what we believe, to speak, as John Diefenbaker said. And don't forget that T-shirt that's available out there in the store. I speak as a free Canadian, free to speak, free to believe in what I choose. And Justin Trudeau is not going to interfere with that. Thanks for being a part of the KRAYDEN'S Right resistance, and we'll see you again soon. So we are in a very precarious position in this country. We need a political change, but we also need to resolve to resist.